The episode begins with the dealer explaining that the game would begin with a simple question, and all players could answer only yes or no. They would cast their votes accordingly. If the majority voted yes, then all those players would be eliminated and would have to leave behind their 100 million worth diamond. The remaining players would proceed to the next vote. This process would continue until only 1 or 2 players remained. At that point, since there would no longer be a minority, the game would end. If only 1 player remained, they would win 2.1 billion yen. If 2 players remained, the prize would be split equally, giving each 1 billion yen. One participant argued that the game might be rigged, suggesting that the organizers could have planted their own people among the players to manipulate votes. The dealer laughed and dismissed the idea, explaining that such cheating wouldn't work in a minority rule system. If it were a majority rule game, they could have influenced it, but here, cheating would be ineffective. Akiyama then asked about the purpose of the game. The dealer replied that they were searching for the ultimate liar king. Wealthy individuals funded the game because they were willing to pay large sums for genius-level deceivers. Although their identities were kept secret, the dealer insisted that the liar game tournament did not involve cheating. He then announced that dinner had been prepared. A lavish meal was served, but most players were too anxious to eat, knowing they could soon fall into 100 million yen of debt. Only Akiyama and a bespectacled young man ate calmly. Akiyama encouraged Now to eat as well, reminding her that she would need strength for what lay ahead. Now then wondered how Akiyama had even become a participant, since he hadn't received an invitation. He replied that he had tried to stop her from coming, but she had entered the game anyway. He had arrived intending to prevent her from participating, but she had already gone inside. Outside, he had met a girl who was crying. She had won 100 million yen in the first round but didn't want to continue. She had come to return the money using a check, but she had mistakenly handed it to another player disguised as an agent. The real agent later informed her of the deception, leaving her with no choice but to participate in round 2. Akiyama offered to play in her place, taking on both the risk and the reward, and thus entered the game using her name tag. After dinner, the players were shown a demonstration of the game. The dealer randomly selected a number from a box, number 18, belonging to a girl. She was asked to pose a yes or no question, and she asked, "Are you a woman?" Each player received 2 slips labeled yes and no, along with their identification number. Normally, players would have 6 hours to decide, but for the demonstration, they were given 10 minutes. Now reasoned that there were only 6 women among the players, meaning they were the minority. She assumed all women would vote yes and win. However, when the votes were revealed, she was shocked. 15 players had voted yes and 7 had voted no. Even some men had voted yes. The dealer explained that the goal was not to answer truthfully but to remain in the minority. The correctness of the answer didn't matter. The question itself was merely a formality. The real challenge was to predict or influence others' votes. That was why players were given time to analyze others and form strategies. If, for example, 21 players voted yes and only 1 voted no, the game could end in a single round. Ultimately, the player who managed time and influence best would win. The demonstration ended, and the real game was scheduled to begin the next day, with 2 rounds played daily. Players would stay overnight in the hotel, though they were technically free to leave, at the cost of incurring a 100 million yen debt. Now was shown to her luxurious room, but she couldn't stop worrying about how to win. She considered asking others about their votes, but realized no one would tell the truth. Forming alliances also seemed risky in a minority rule game. Overwhelmed, she began to cry and went looking for Akiyama. In the lobby, she found him among other players. He told her that the first rule of winning was to stop crying, and the second was to understand her opponents. He instructed her to talk to as many players as possible and learn about them. Now followed his advice. Some players spoke to her, while others simply observed. An elderly man named Matsubara revealed that he owned a small factory burdened with debt. He had nearly given up on life before receiving the liar game invitation. He had won 20 million yen in the first round and used it to pay off some debt. But when he received the round 2 notice, he learned he would need to pay 10 million yen to withdraw, money he no longer had. Now also spoke to a young man named Takayoshi, who admitted he had stolen 2 million yen to win the first round. He had assumed round 2 would be just as easy, but now feared ending up with massive debt. He even distrusted the organizers, speculating that they might sell the bodies of losing players. This frightened Now deeply. She rushed back to Akiyama and shared what she had learned, that most players had underestimated the difficulty of round 2 and were now at risk of heavy debt. Akiyama told her to rest, but she broke down again, fearing for her safety. He reassured her and revealed that he had a foolproof plan. While they might not win the full 2.1 billion yen, they could avoid debt and still leave with around 40 million yen each. He explained that they needed to form a team of 8 players. In the first round, 4 members would vote yes and 4 would vote no, ensuring that at least 4 of them would advance regardless of the outcome. In the next round, 2 would vote yes and 2 no, and so on, guaranteeing that one of their team members would ultimately win. The winner would receive 2.1 billion yen, then pay 1.05 100 billion to exit the game, leaving about 1 billion. From that, they would clear each team member's 100 million yen debt, and the remaining 350 million would be shared, giving each person roughly 43 million yen. Now found the plan reassuring. It ensured both survival and profit. However, Akiyama warned that one of the players had already proven untrustworthy, the person who had tricked the girl and taken her 100 million yen check. He referred to this person as X and insisted that they must not include him in their team, as he had nothing to lose and couldn't be trusted. Now then had an idea. Since there were 6 women among the players, they could form a team excluding X. Akiyama pointed out that this would only make 7 members, but now suggested adding Matsubara to complete the group of 8. She quickly went out and managed to gather them all within an hour. Akiyama was surprised by how efficiently she had done it. One of the girls explained that now had emotionally pleaded with them, saying she would be devastated if they refused. With the group assembled, Akiyama began explaining his strategy to them, and with that the episode came to an end.